get a Happy Meal than to eat a salad, or whatever.
I was in Washington, D.C. this week, and I met with this organization, which anybody who is interested in this should check out, called Third Way. And what Third Way is a centrist organization, right? So they largely work with Dems to try to pull them here. And I think the Republican version is called the Niskansen, Center. But the idea is I sat with these guys and I was like, just teach me something. And they taught me the most incredible thing. You guys know who Pew is? Pew goes out and does all these surveys. The Pew Research Center.
They've been doing it for decades. They're the most respected, I think, in surveys.
Pew does this incredible thing where they go to like a whole bunch of countries in the world and they ask this basically very simple question. I'm going to ask you guys what you think the answer is. On a 0 to 10 scale, where 10 is important, what do you think Americans think to the following question? How important is hard work to get ahead in life? Meaning, right? So it's a proxy for how Americans think about hard work. How important is hard work to get ahead in life?
Friedberg.
What percentage of Americans do you think that say that hard work is important to get ahead in life? And I'll give you a couple of data points. In Indonesia,
I don't know, 80%? Yeah.
But the setup is Indonesia, 28%, India, 38%, Germany, 50%. Go ahead. What do you think the answer is?
Well, it should be 100%, but what do I think it is in the U.S.? I'm hoping it's above 60.
I agree with you, Sacks. 100% is the right answer. And I believe Americans don't believe it. I'm going to put Americans at 35%.
Because we've seen so many people get lucky and get rich in the United States.
Or just people think the system's rigged, or the victim culture where people tell everybody, don't bother trying because it's rigged. And I think the argument, sorry, Chamath, I'll let you give us the answer in a second, but I think the argument is that like entrepreneurism fuels these moments of extraordinary success, but the perception creates the opposite effect, which is someone can get rich very quickly, and therefore there's this luck factor or this unfairness factor that is, that is inherent in the system, right? And so while it does enable hard work to drive, tremendous outcomes, the perception is that, holy crap, in 3 years, Kylie Jenner went on Instagram and became a billionaire or whatever, right? And people get really kind of blown away by that. And I think it's discouraging. Or one person's success makes it such that other people can't, that it's zero sum, when
That's
in
right.
fact, a company...
Right. What's your number for America?
80%.
The number is 73%, and we are the third highest ranking country in the survey.
That's great.
So it's amazing. Now, if you ask then Americans who better represents the interests of hardworking people, among Republicans and Democrats, the overwhelming answer is now Republicans, which is really interesting. Democrats, even in exit polling, basically voted for Biden because they just really found Trump distasteful. And a lot of the people that basically said, he's an ass, and so they voted him out. But it was not because they believed that Democrats could do the job of actually reinforcing the values of hard work. And this goes back to...
Yeah, they don't want handouts. People don't want handouts.
Yeah. People want a fair shot. They want an even starting line. They don't want an even finishing line.
Yeah. No one wants paternalism, and everyone wants opportunity. But you take what you're given when it's available to you. No one says no. I spent a lot of time with farmers in the Midwest in the United States, very diehard conservative generally, right? And farmers benefit greatly from significant federal government support programs, primarily a crop insurance program and some commodity price support programs. But they are very anti-government. And there's this tremendous irony there, right? Because they don't want a handout. They want to kind of be left alone. They want to be able to run their business. And I'm generalizing, right? But I'm just speaking broadly to kind of the theme of things I hear when I meet with farmers. But when the crop insurance program shows up and direct support payments show up, you're like, okay, I'll take the check. And so it's hard to say no, but I think the motivation for everyone is universally the same, which is, right, I want to have the opportunity to be successful independently.
Are we creating policies that reinforce this? And are we creating the condition that makes people feel less like a victim, less looking for handouts, and let's do this? I have a concern about these stimulus checks. I do think it was a smart thing to do to get us out of this. But do you guys wonder if this generation, which is not going back to work, we have a shortage of Uber drivers. We have a shortage of bartenders, waiters. A lot of people are just choosing not to go to work because they have their stimmies.
America is a place where you come to because you want to grind. You want to find your own little engine room and you want to be in there and you want to put in the hours. And the people that it attracts from around the world speak to that. The way that you can explain, why Indonesia and India are so far to the left on that same question is because it's an extremely homogeneous population with zero immigration.
No immigration. Yeah.
I actually think the reason why America is so far to the right is it self-selects not by, some kind of gender, age, or religion or color of skin.
By motivation.
It's motivation.
Yeah,
and it's
totally.
like, if you're motivated to crush, you come to the United States.
You come to the United States. Yeah.
We're all, what are we? Like, one generation away, except Jason, you're 2-generation American?
My Irish side is 6th generation.
We're all first generation second. Except for Jason, right? We all moved here to the United States as immigrants.
Yeah. As immigrants.
With motivated family. Yeah.
I think that's why I'm the least successful of the group. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, you're the lazy, complacent American, whereas we're the hungry immigrants.
I'm trying. Hey, listen.
You're the Daniel Day-Lewis character
to do the podcast, so I'm doing something right.
You're the Daniel Day-Lewis character in Gangs in New York. You hate the immigrants. You sit at the boats. You throw eggs at everyone.
It's interesting you bring that up.
Yeah.
Do you know where my Irish forebears came from and where they immigrated to?
Ireland?
The 5 points.
Oh, the 5 points.
We were in the 5 points. It's
of course
exactly accurate. Yeah. Of course I was. It makes total sense.
You're not Daniel Day-Lewis. You're the heavier, shorter guy, though. That was kind of
not for long. You know what?
Yeah.
I dropped 10 on my quarantine 15, and I gave it to Sacks.
Yeah, you did.
You're looking good, Jake. You look good. You look good in Miami. Miami suits you.
In a weird way, I gotta give Jake Hal as much credit for where he came from as Chamath. Because, I don't know, those parts of Brooklyn are maybe as tough as Sri Lanka.
Kids with guns. Yeah, child warriors.
You're going to get jumped. Always roll with a posse.
By the way, on immigration, I don't know if you guys saw this. George W. Bush paints now, and he paints immigrants.
Yes.
So I bought his book. I bought a signed copy of it. I should have brought it to the podcast today, but it's a great book. I highly recommend it.
Trigger warning.
No, but he actually has some writings in there that talks about the power of immigration and how immigration is so core to the success of the United States, just to our point. So this conversation made me think of the book that I just bought this week. Really cool book, by the way. George W. Bush, amazingly great artist, really captures the personality of immigrants in his work.
I think the thing is like everybody wants to come here to work hard. Everybody that's here is willing to work hard, right? Whether you're first generation or not. And then the question is, can government create policies that allow us to do that and actually just create a safety net to catch us if we fall? Because that's what we also all want. So there are parts of Biden's bill that I think made a ton of sense, like, making community college free. That's a really disruptive idea because it'll put a ton of pressure on for-profit colleges, right? To get their act together or not. That's a good idea. The child tax credit so that you can actually have subsidized, childcare for your kids. That's a good idea. But then where you kind of go astray is then when you start to figure out, the levels of taxation. Again, we talked about this last time, but, I just think that that's where you can kind of demotivate people to not then put in the hours.
I think this is a good segue also into immigration through our southern border and this incredibly polarizing issue and how the media is polarizing it, how the parties are polarizing it. Just to ask a question to see if we even understand the data, how many people do you think are illegal immigrants in the United States right now?
20 million.
Okay. Friedberg, Sacks?
That's a guess.
Yeah. I'd guess 18 million. I'll take a slight under to Chamath, but that's about the right
Sacks?
order of magnitude.
The last number I heard was like 12 million, but that was a few years ago. And
bingo, it's 12. Yeah. Now, how many people are apprehended at the southern border a year since 2010 every year?
500,000.
Anybody else want to take a guess?
50,000.
All right, it's 350,000. So we literally are tearing the country apart.
And I know that because I watched the movie Sicario, and I'm estimating based on the scene where they round everyone up at the border and took them away. So that's my
terrifying film.
Yeah,
and awesome. Like you will,
incredible film.
Just bring a Xanax because you might have a panic attack.
My favorite modern director, Denis Villeneuve. He's unbelievable. But
yes,
we digress. Yes.
That scene when they're racing the cars into the border crossing, border checkpoint. What it is
music.
It's so intense. So intense.
So if you guys are into sci-fi, that guy directed The Arrival, which is one of my favorite films.
That's a fabulous
beautiful
movie.
film. Yeah, beautiful film.
So literally, the country's being torn apart. A country of 330 million, over 3 million would be 1%, 0.1% coming into the border. And we just said immigration is just all these amazing people coming here who want to strive and who want great things. Why are we tearing the country up over this issue?
This makes no sense. This is a tough topic.
Well, I think Jason, your point of view on immigration really depends on where you're sitting in the economy. So I think for all of us who are in Silicon Valley, we know that something like half of startups have an immigrant co-founder.
Totally.
And so we've seen, like PayPal, I think, there were like 3 or 4 immigrants on the founding team. Peter was born in Germany. Elon was born in South Africa. Max was born in Russia. I was born in South Africa. And then you go down the list. Same thing with Google. Sergey Brin came from Russia, and just on it goes. So if you're sitting in Silicon Valley as a tech worker, you see that these immigrants bring tremendous dynamism to the economy. However, if you're in a low wage job, maybe low skill service, then a lot of this immigration is competition, and it creates wage pressure for you. So this is why historically the unions have not been in favor of immigration. You have, a lot of service workers in the minority communities. There's a lot of animosity towards immigrants because of that. Fundamentally, it creates job competition and wage competition. And I do think, so look, it's easy for us to sit here in Silicon Valley where we sit in the economy and say, oh, well, let's just have unlimited immigration. It doesn't matter. Well, yeah, it doesn't matter to us. But if you're in the low skill part of the economy, it does matter a lot to let in a flood of immigrants who are in that low skill category. And by the way, we're worried about these jobs getting automated away as well. So, I think you have to have a sensible policy. I mean, yes to immigration, but I think you have to think about how much sort of low skill immigration can we assimilate and absorb.
Right. But aren't a lot of those people who are coming in also then taking lower wages because they're off the books and they're illegal? Whereas if we had a more reasonable policy of letting whatever percentage in, like we could just pick a number. And if that actually worked and they were getting paid on the books, then it would remove some of that downside pressure. So you're not paying somebody under the books to be a delivery person or a dishwasher, whatever the entry level job is. They have to get paid that minimum wage.
Jason, I think this speaks to the broader kind of set of political topics which relates to the enablement of competition. And it speaks to some of the trade policy points that I think the last administration made, which is to limit trade and to limit access to global markets, to provide services and products to the United States and to tax them, because the lower cost labor ultimately outcompetes with higher cost labor in the United States. And so, you get lower cost goods, but the balance is it worth having lower cost goods and services where you could actually see too much of a decline in the employability or in the wages of people that are currently producing those goods and services in the United States? And that's the tricky balance, right? There's no blue or red right way to do this. We want to enable competition. We want to enable progress. We want to enable lower cost of production, lower cost goods and services, but we also don't want to have the economic impact and the social impact of people being underemployed and unemployed. And balancing those two, one of the tricky pieces of that balancing puzzle is immigration. Another one is trade. Another one is regulation, and et cetera, right? So a lot of these things kind of drive that tricky balance.
I really bounce around on this. Of all of the 4 of us, I was the only one that immigrated myself. So I didn't, it's not that my parents did it.
Oh, you did it? Yeah. Okay.
I did it myself. Yeah. I drove to the border. I got a TN visa stamp. I crossed the border into Buffalo. I stood in line. I got my own social security number. And I started a life in America in the year 2000.
How old were you?
22, I guess, or 23.
You had a job lined up already?
I had a job. I had a job offer. I had my offer letter. I did the whole thing. Then I transferred onto an H-1B visa. I had to go through all of that. Then I had to, wait in line. I got delayed. I had to refile. So as a person that went through the immigration system and finally got their green card in 2007 or 8, and then my citizenship in 2011 or 2012, I bounce around on how I feel because I remember the insecurity I felt in not wanting to lose my visa and have to leave and go back to Canada. And so if somebody was in that situation, I could see why, they would get very agitated if they saw a lot of immigration being lumped into one broad brush, right? And because if you look at it, actually, there's a really interesting conundrum, because it's not like immigration is a thing where all immigrants are pro-immigration, right?
That's right.
It's actually not that at all. It tends to be sort of cultural elites are pro-immigration because it's a synthetic way of showing openness and open-mindedness. But then, inside, no, right? I mean, it's true. It's because they don't get affected by it. It doesn't get affected by it.
Exactly.
If anything, it makes it easier for them to maybe find people to hire.
Well, as someone that lived through it, what I would say is if I was still waiting for my green card and waiting in line and having the idea that there was some amnesty program would have made me feel very insecure. I'm not sure how I would have reacted to it, but in that moment, I would have felt insecure. So the broad solution to immigration is you have to separate the two problems and say, this part of the problem can be solved almost like a professional sports team, which is to say we have the ability to draft every year the smartest and most interesting, capable people that want to come here and work hard. That will probably, it be a rising tide. Then there are these two other buckets. Bucket in the middle is just compassionate openness. Family members and other people, refugees, because I was emigrated into Canada, not in the first bucket because we didn't have much to contribute economically, but in the second bucket, which is for social justice and refugees. And then there is a third bucket, which is there are people that are not going to be in a position to wait in line. They are going to come to the border, and we have to have a mechanism of saying, okay, you shouldn't have done it, but you did. And now here's a pathway where you can earn the right to prove that you should be here. And I think that but we can't have that nuance because nobody wants to hear it. You want to lump it into one. This is where, for example, like last year when Trump, decapitated the H-1B program, I thought this is just so dumb.
Yeah. No nuance.
It's basically telling, it's forcing a star athlete, to go and play a different sport. Why would you do that? And it's so artificial. It doesn't make any sense.
But there's such a reasonable discussion to be had here because other countries have solved this exact thing with the point-based system. Australia, Canada, New Zealand, and others have all worked on a system like this, which is you get points for each of the qualities that you bring, and then you put some numbers on it. But there is no difference.
But J-Cal, those countries are much, much harder to get into than the United States. Good luck getting into New Zealand. You better buy a property or something like that.
It might be that the point-based system is letting in the people that make the society stronger.
No, Canada has a really progressive view on this. I mean, they have a point-based system, but they do a lot. They're really compassionate about, they'll take in a lot more refugees than most other countries. And I think that they've never lost that spirit. And I think that the point is, I agree with Jason. It's possible. It's logical. The problem is it's too logical. And,